Welcome to the Muslim Street, the Sunday's broadcast. On the Muslim Street, you can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. You can find us across all social media at the Muslim Street, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and of course, Instagram. We're brought to you by Lance Scurf Show, produced out of Ori, Ghana. And we have a very special program. We're going to do a follow-up from our program last week, in particular discussing the issue of what seems to be a propaganda campaign coming out of the Western media, a deflection. And that one is entitled, I say that one because they'll come with another one right after this one, and just as they did before. This one has been kind of long running. It's been getting some traction out of Nigeria. Mass killings of Christians by Muslims. We have on the ground in Nigeria to give his perspective, a non-Muslim, non-Christian perspective, a brother by the name of Majek Abahun. He's an author of a book called The Great Delusion. We're going to be hearing a lot more about that, and we're going to challenge Brother Majek to submit an article for our online periodical, themuslimstreet.com. All right, just a little house cleaning, and that is, please put any of your questions in the chat, comments, and if we find them worthy, then of course we will present them on the show. Also, joining us a little bit later, our co-host, Art Mobley from Out 423, as well as Dr. Viper White from the Muslim Street, and also an author. Lance, what's going on over there before we jump into Majek and jump into this Nigerian thing and this propaganda that's going on? Well, maybe it's not propaganda, but Majek is going to set the record straight on the ground with an eyewitness report. Lance, in Ghana, I saw last week where there was the former First Lady of Ghana, the wife of Chairman Jerry Rawlings, who has been a great friend of the African diaspora. Jerry Rawlings, of course, came to power in a coup d'etat in the 1980s. And essentially, it was a necessary coup d'etat because those who were in power were stringing along this whole concept of neo-colonial. And then in 1992, Jerry Rawlings brought in through a political organization called the PNDC, democratic elections. He was then elected as democratically in 1992. It's been a democratic election ever since. Chairman Rawlings, affectionately known as his people in Ghana, has passed away during COVID. And we just lost his wife. You know, when I was in Ghana, I was guest of, I didn't really say, but kind of, I was in the same space with Chairman Rawlings and his wife. And that was New Year's Eve in the presidential palace with Chairman Rawlings, and then, of course, the introduction and the celebration of the PNDC, January 1st, 1992. On the big stage, where nearly 50, if not all, time 53 states on the African continent were represented at that celebration. Heads of states, ambassadors, it was a show. Anyhow, both of them was in the space with me, and I happened to be in the space with them. One of the things, Lance, that I noticed that always struck me, and I want to ask you, do you see that still on the ground in Ghana? And then we'll go to Majek and talk about this issue in Nigeria, and related to the same question. And that is, I remember when the elections were coming up, because Chairman Rollins' wife was Shante, Shante and Kumasi, and one of the brothers over there said he's going to win the Ashanti vote. So, and I say this to say tribalism. I shouldn't say tribalism because that strings up something negative. People who are adorned to their tribal roots. Is the political structure still that stringent where they will vote along tribal lines?
From what I can see, yes. Very passionate about supporting those who are from your same origins. It's very much still here. Even when many will try to speak in a way beyond that, from what I see, it's still there. Things, but at the end of the day, you're going to support your own. And it's a very much a passionate thing. It's very passionate. I mean, very passionate. We don't see anything anywhere near it in American politics like it is here. And the debates, it could be in the street, never fighting now. And welcome, Dr. Issa White. Never fighting, but very passionate, where through Western eyes, we would think that, oh man, these people are going to start fighting in the street. But no, it's even when the current president was elected in, those who supported President Nana, they were so upset. I mean, and I am new here relatively because I just made 5 years here, have my citizenship, but I'm still a guest when it comes to the deep-rooted perspectives and history that people have here. So I'm like a guest who is sleeping for the week over at your house, but I'm on the couch.
Informed his likeness, but
stuff.
ultimately
When you're with your
preparations
spouse,
don't be without
I'm hearing some feedback more so. Oh, I think that's Dr. Vibrant. But yeah, it's like
Turn that radio off.
Someone else's home. You're there and make it home, but you're not supposed to hear. So I don't touch the politics that as a guest, they will me, but I kind of stay away, passionate about the opposing views.
Okay, so let me jump into it with our guest, Jack, on the ground in Nigeria. I want to start off just kind of discussing the Western media reporting, Brother Jack, that there's a mass going on in Nigeria that Muslims are killing Christians. We even heard the thrown around. So I would like for you to give us a summation of your account on the ground in Nigeria of exactly what the issue is. And I just want to say for transparency purposes, Majek is not a Muslim and he's not a Christian. Okay, Majek.
All right, thank you so much. It's interesting, and I'm happy to be on the program again. And I greet our viewers across the globe. Well, in response to the genocide of the Christian claim by specifically the President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump, it's quite it's not disheartening, because of course. We view the United States, especially the President of the United States, as an imperialist whose interest is just about dominating other countries for his own personal interest. It is not true that there is a genocide against the Christian going on in Nigeria. It is quite unfortunate that a president who made such grievous claim could not even provide evidence for it. He made that announcement on his social media platform without any evidence to justify the claim of Christians being killed, being mass killed in Nigeria. That's not correct. Of course, there are crises, there are insecurity issues going on, especially in northern Nigeria. But it is not targeted to any religious group. The newspaper have been reporting about it. The government has been doing what it can to ensure that the killings, the terrorist activities going on in the northern part of Nigeria are being curtailed. Yes, there are people who believe the president of Nigeria needs to do more. That what he's doing is really not enough. That he needs to step up his game to ensure that the lives and property of people in the northern part of Nigeria are being protected. But it is not true that there is a genocide going on in Nigeria. You have to give a dog a bad name to have a justification for which to kill the dog. And that's what the Trump administration is doing. And he also described Nigeria as being a disgraced country. Yes, I read that on his tweet. But the interesting thing is that in recent times, the United States and its Western allies have been the object of ridicule and shame globally in global politics. And I have facts to prove that. Recently, the US and Western soldiers have been chased away from the Sahel states, from Burkina Faso, from Niger, from Mali, because those African countries are saying no more should their resources, or no more will their resources be exploited by the United States and its Western allies. So if you are looking for a country that has been subjected to ridicule and shame, it is the United States, not Nigeria, or not even any African country. And also, it is important to also point out that the reason the president of the United States is doing all of this, raising up this propaganda, and it's not surprising. The Western imperialist forces, they have an idea of always using propaganda to create discord within a country. Similar thing was done in Iraq, where they came up with all manners of lies, claiming they are a weapon of mass destruction in Iraq and all of that. They got an opportunity to go into Iraq to inspect there, and the next thing is they invaded. But nothing of such was found. So they are notorious for trying to raise up propaganda lies in order to sow seed of discord amongst the people of the target of their country. And that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing again. Nigeria is not the only country he has attempted that in recent time. He did the same thing in South Africa, where himself and Elon Musk, a man who rolled on the resources of the South African people to become whatever he claims he is now. Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they also took to the media, using their social media influence, to lie that Black South Africans are massacring whites in South Africa. And that is not correct. It is not true. They didn't provide any evidence to back up their claim, further showing that these people regard the public as not having a lot of intelligence. Because if they respect the public opinion, if they trust the intelligence of the public, they won't make claims without providing evidence to it. And the reason they beefed up such propaganda against South Africa was because the South African president said no more should 80% of the economic and land control in South Africa be in the hands of whites. Because as I speak to you, more than 70% of lands in South Africa are controlled by whites in South Africa. Then the South Africans are saying enough is enough. The land belongs to Black people. The land belongs to Africans. So they want to do a redistribution of land. That is what happened in South Africa. Donald Trump and Elon Musk began to raise all manners of lies, propaganda, to create a seed of discord among the South African people, because they think once they successfully divided the country, there will be an insurrection from within. But unfortunately for them, gone are the days where Africans are being thrown all manners of lies and they run with it. The people of South Africa rose up in solidarity with their government and said enough is enough. And the propaganda of Donald Trump never saw the light of the day in South Africa. Similar thing is going on in Nigeria. And interestingly, the Nigerian people are solidly behind on the sovereignty of their country. Donald Trump also threatened military action against Nigeria. It further shows the lack of international order, treaty that they claim to respect, because Nigeria is a sovereign country. Let's even assume their attack against a region or against a religious sect in Nigeria. It is the responsibility of the Nigerian government to ensure that the terrorist attacks are being curtailed. If the United States of America is indeed interested in resolving the matter, what is expected diplomatically is to provide whatever support they have, whatever intelligence gathering they have with the Nigerian security apparatus to ensure that the security or the insecurity is being combated. And of course, Nigeria or any African country do not need the support of any Western or foreign countries to solve their problems. The problems of Africa can only be solved by the African people. It's also important for us to know that what is going on, the lies Donald Trump is spreading across the world, claiming genocide is going on in Nigeria, is as a result of the disgrace the Western imperialists have met in the Sahel state. Because Burkina Faso, Mali chased away the Western soldiers, including the soldiers of the United States. And they've tried everything possible to get Nigeria to invade Niger. But the Nigerian people are saying never, that will never happen. So they are looking for a way to invade Nigeria, US to invade Nigeria, set up a base in Nigeria, and use that to launch an attack against the Nigerian people and the other African brothers. But we are saying enough is enough. Never will we allow that to happen. And also, what is going on in Nigeria and even in the African continent as a whole? I made reference to South Africa, the lies Donald Trump made against South Africa, as claiming blacks are killing whites in South Africa. It is all because United States, as it stands now, is like a dying horse, doing everything possible to assert authority. But of course, the glorious era where the US will bully the world is long past. The US is trying everything possible to ensure that the development and strength of BRICS, of the BRICS bloc, never see the light of the day. South Africa is a member of BRICS, and BRICS is saying no more will the world fold its hand and allow the US hegemony to dictate and determine the destiny of the world. We want a unipolar system where every country will be treated as one, and decision policy formulation will be based on mutual respect. That is what the world wants. But of course, that undermines the imperialist interest of the United States and its fellow Western allies. So in order for them to get a justification for which to fight and ensure that they maintain their global empire, they will have to use lies and deception. Let me also point out there that in 2024, the United States blocked access of weapon purchase from Nigeria. Nigeria tried to buy weapons, but the United States blocked it. Now, if the United States is indeed concerned about combating terrorism, as it claims, then why blocking access to countries like Nigeria from getting weapons, to defend and to secure their country? So the United States is not, and I think I need to be clear. It is not a case of the United States against the Nigerian or African people. It's a case of the deep state, the imperialist forces in the United States. Because it's not a reaction against the people of the United States. So the same thing happened in Burkina Faso and Niger. US consistently deprived them the access from getting weapons. to defend the country against terrorism. Because of course it's no longer news that the U.S. authority also has hand in funding some of these terrorist organizations. Soldiers that the United States has trained through the African program, some of them are taking up arms against their countries. So there is no killing, no genocide against the Christians in Nigeria, as Donald Trump has been lying. If he claims, if indeed is convinced that there is, the world should ask him to provide evidence for it. And of course, there are crises going on, terrorism attack and all that, but it is not targeted to anybody. Where I'm speaking for, we have, just few miles away from where I am, there is an internally displaced camp. And most of the people there are Muslims. They left their homes in the northern part of Nigeria, and they came to the southern part of Nigeria where I am. They are Muslims who ran away from the terrorist attack. Yes.
I also would like to say that, and I'm sorry that I'm late. So I'm driving on a highway, but nonetheless, the United States is into this policy that we call controlled chaos, whereby they don't want to see unity anywhere, not even in Europe. And when it comes down to Nigeria, the United States has never been concerned about Black Christians or Black anybody. Trump or no Trump, they're all the same. But the issue there, more so than anything else, is that Nigeria sits on the largest reservoirs of oil on the continent. And they want that. So if they can create an avenue of controlled chaos, they would justify by sending in so-called peacekeepers to dismantle the country. And we also have to look at the fact that by dismantling, it also means regime change, which they're trying to do in Venezuela, in Burkina Faso, everywhere on the planet Earth. So the question is that, yes, the Nigerians and the African people know about this, but how to protect themselves. Now, it's also interesting to note that many African Americans don't know these policies. And if they do know, again, they don't know how to protect themselves. I'd like for Brother Malik or Arthur to dive in on this, to get in on this.
Yeah, so just take a station break. This is Muslim Street. Find us at themuslimstreet.com across all social media, YouTube, Facebook, and of course X on Twitter. We're joined by an eyewitness report on the ground in Nigeria, dealing with the propaganda that's coming out of the Trump administration. Trump threatens to cut off aid to Nigeria, the Pentagon to prepare for possible action over the quote-unquote persecution of Christians. This is a lie. We are joined by our guest on the ground, Magikum Abuhum, and he's just for transparency purposes. He's not Muslim. He's not Christian. He's simply giving a political analysis of the situation live on the ground in Nigeria. We're also joined by Art Mobley, the Dow 423, also a founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists. Art, you want to jump in?
Yes, thank you, Malik, and thank you, Dr. White, as well. And good morning to Africa and everybody else that we're talking to throughout the diaspora today. What's going on in Nigeria is certainly cathartic in that it is, we haven't heard much about Africa lately from this administration or any part of the government in the U.S. I know that there's an undercurrent constantly of concern with what's going on in particularly the Sahel right now. And it's just ironic, or maybe not so ironic, that Nigeria is part of the Sahel. And now they want to introduce possibly U.S. forces, or probably more likely some kind of international force of a coalition of the willing is going to go into northern Nigeria and allegedly save Christians at this time. Like we have a concern anywhere in the world for Christians. I mean, Christians have been spit on and beaten and ostracized and even killed in Israel for the last 2 years, along with all of the Palestinians at the same time. No word from anybody about saving Christians in Israel, in Palestine. No word from anybody about that, except reports that are considered to be anti-Semitic reports. So, I mean, unbelievable that these people would just move their mouth to say that they're concerned about Christians in Nigeria when we know it's a pretext and a farce to do something more sinister. What they want to do is they want to put troops on the ground, boots on the ground in the Sahel because of what's going on in Niger and Guinea, what's potentially happening now in Chad, and what's gotten out of hand in Burkina Faso and Mali. They don't want to see this become an entrenched movement of solidarity across multiple states. That is their biggest fear. What terrifies Washington and London and Paris is African little states, countries getting together and coalescing on anything. It's not that Nigeria can do anything on its own. Nigeria has for the most part, been complicit with the West for a long time. They've actually thought about putting together a force to go in and help ECOWAS dislodge the new military leaderships in Faso and Mali and Guinea, for that matter, and Niger. So they've always presented themselves as an opposing force in Nigeria, and too many people in Nigeria go along with those kinds of activities. Certainly the youth don't. And there's a growing movement in Nigeria to move along with the rest of Africa. But what my point is, and I'll settle on this and stop as well, the forces that are most feared in Africa are those that are consolidative, those people that want to get together and say, let's create a solid front, like Burkina Faso and Mali have presented. Let's be one country, let's be one continent, and then let's deal with this. That is the only force that can possibly mitigate what is being challenged by the West and what has continued to be the problem of colonialism for all of these years.
All right. Did not Nigeria also vote to suspend Burkina Faso and Mali out of the AU?
Well, out of ECOWAS, certainly, but AU, ECOWAS is a regional organization of states that are in that Western region. And certainly the AU is supposed to be a continental force, but the AU used to be the Organization of African Unity, the OAU. That was what Kwame Nkrumah and Lumumba and Mandela and others started a long time ago. Gabon Nasser, they put together a solid organization. The AU is an overlay on the Organization of African Unity, but the AU is also a mimic and a copy of the EU. That's where that came from, So they essentially were compromised or there's an attempt to compromise that organization and make it something other than what it is. But yes, to answer that question, Nigeria has been complicit, as I said, with the West in trying to subdue the Sahel and thwart these different movements. And depending on the leadership in Nigeria, we get pushback, and occasionally we get some support. But we certainly would like to see Nigeria, which is the most populated country in Africa or state in Africa, in line with what the rest of the continent really wants to do, and that is essentially secede from the West and get away from colonialism, move out of neocolonialism, and move to true independence. And that's the movement that's going on, and nothing is going to stop that. But there are a lot of people, unfortunately, trying to slow it down.
Yes. So Nigeria, as Brother Patrick talked about, really needs to get closer to organizations like BRICS, right? I mean, because if the AU is not doing their part, or ECOWAS is not doing their part, they're going to need outside support, because if not, the United States, along with her allies, are going to recolonize in a different manner, but a 21st century manner of West Africa.
Well, I think Africa's big enough, bold enough, bad enough to stand on its own. Africa can be its own. It started and was always part of what was called the non-aligned movement. And that's just states that said, we're not aligned with the West, we're not aligned with the East, we're not aligned with socialism, we're not aligned with capitalism. We are dealing with the problems that we have on the African continent in its own particular and special way. And we need to have the freedom to do that. We don't need to be associated with your Cold War antics of East-West nonsense that you ping pong back and forth, and you want to catch people in the middle of that and, essentially get folks caught up. Africa.
But the question is that will West Africa be like the states of South America? I mean, Brazil, Colombia, and several others, except for Argentina, has stated to Washington in the last few hours that if you make a move against Venezuela, you make a move against all of us, and we're ready to go to fight to defend our brothers in Venezuela. Cuba said the same thing. Now, are the West African states outside of Mali and Burkina Faso willing to make that statement and that type of move of self-protection? What do you think?
All of Africa should do that. We've already had a revolution in Southern Africa. We have already had a revolution in Algiers and Egypt and Tunis and Northern Africa. Now we're having a revolution in the Sahel states. We've had a revolution actually in Eastern Africa with Ethiopia and Eritrea and Somalia. And, there have been successful revolutionary movements in every part of the African continent. The only thing that they haven't done is coalesced into one power. But because you have movements that seek to do either state-sponsored liberation movements or regional liberation movements, all the imperialists have to do is just if you move over to one section of Africa and you liberate it, they just moved into another section of Africa, and they continue with their colonial antics and then their divisive efforts to undo what those revolutionary movements have done. So yes, we do need consolidation. We do need to speak with one voice across the entire continent. We do need to unify the continent. That was the principles that were originally designed for the Organization of African Unity to do. Kwame Nkrumah envisioned one army. He called it the All-African People's Army. The All-African People's Army is still a vision that's sitting on the back burner. It needs to be moved back to the front burner. And all of Africa's military forces need to combine and say what you're saying. There's they've spoken of in Latin America and South America, and said, no, we're going to do this together. That's what the European Union was all about. They're going to speak as NATO. They're going to speak as one group, one voice, and say nobody is going to come into Europe and do anything. If you fight or mess with one of us, you got to mess with all of us. That's what the Soviet Union was. So everybody else understands what unionism is. Everybody understands what unity is. Africa has to understand they need to stop with the idea that, we can be Nigeria and Togo and Ghana and Senegal, and then stand in defense of those colonies and act like that's a way to the future. It is not a way to the future. It's a way back into the colonialism. You can't do it that way, and it won't happen. And until Africa learns and understands that, they're going to be stuck in the ditch.
Yeah. So, a question for Magic. Donald Trump has reported less than 6 hours ago that he is prepared to send in United States troops on the ground with guns blazing if the Muslims don't stop killing the Christians. He literally just posted this. What are the people on the ground in Nigeria? How are they digesting this threat coming from Donald Trump in the United States?
Thank you so much. We need to understand the fact that the revolution going on specifically in Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré representing a shining light for young Africans. That consciousness has spread across the African continent, especially into the Nigerian space. And of course, that's what the imperialists are trying, possibly to stop. The implication of an Ibrahim Traoré, making bold anti-imperialist stance is that Africans, including young Nigerians, are saying the sovereignty of their country must be protected. They find it offensive. They find it ridiculous for an American president to dictate what goes on, the affairs of the Nigerian people. And also, like we said on the last program, that when there was an attempt pre-independence in Nigeria, there was an attempt to sign an agreement to make Nigeria a military satellite of the British authority. It took young Nigerians, students and youth, to protest against the Anglo Defense Pact, and that agreement was abolished. Similar consciousness, as I speak to you, is on the Nigerian soil. Young people are saying any attempt by the Trump regime to undermine the sovereignty of the Nigerian country will be resisted, regardless whatever the situation will be. Nigerians are not willing and are not ready to surrender their land or their country to foreign invaders. Like we also said earlier on, of course, Donald Trump is not concerned about any genocide, because of course there is no genocide in Nigeria. I need to emphasize that. No genocide against any Christian in Nigeria. It's just a propaganda to sow a seed of discord amongst the Nigerian people, hoping he could get an insurrection. He could get an insurrection from the Nigerians using the boot on the ground as his last resort. So yes, Nigerian youth are united as never before. And it's also important to point out that what is going on the African continent is a second decolonization struggle. A second decolonization struggle. Like what our brother said earlier, Nigeria cannot continue to fold his hand. Nigeria must take a decision, because the old non-aligned agreement, it doesn't make any sense. Because when we decide not to take a position, and we are seeing an elephant trampling on an ant, we've automatically take a position. We've supported the elephant against the ant. So Nigeria need to come out and join the anti-imperialist forces, the Niger, the Burkina Faso. That is what Nigerians, young Nigerians that are conscious about the history of imperialism against the African continent. That's what the Nigerians are saying. Nigeria can no longer fold its hands and watch what is going on in Burkina Faso without solidarizing with the people of Burkina Faso and, you know, bring to life the dreams of people like Kwame Nkrumah, Muammar Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, and other African revolutionary leaders. So for the Nigerian youth, Nigerians are solidly behind the sovereignty of their country, and they are willing to do everything possible to defend Nigeria against any foreign invasion.
Absolutely. And again, when I said non-aligned movements, I'm talking about non-aligned with the East and the West. And BRICS certainly characterizes a portion of that. But there are new movements, there are new alliances and new strains of things that can do. But the major thing that Africa needs to do is align with itself. Like Brother just said, Nigeria needs to be supportive of what is going on in the Sahel, like it should have been supportive, more supportive of what went on in Southern Africa when that movement in everywhere from Mozambique all the way to Guinea-Bissau, for that matter, and Amilcar Cabral, and what they were doing that far west in Africa needed to be supported by the entire African continent. The rest of the African continent can't act like they're disaffected by what's going on in Burkina Faso. And they can't act like they're disaffected with what's going on in northern Nigeria right now, which is causing all of this other rhetorical nonsense coming out of the Trump administration talking about Christians. They don't care about Christians here. They don't care about Christians in America. Black Christians in America, give me a break. When it's laughable. You know, we who live in this country know that that is absolutely lunacy for them to even have that, even make those kinds of statements. But anyway, we do have to create unity, and we do have to precipitate unity, and we definitely need to do that on the African continent. Time is fleeting, and everybody is really trying to get the rest of Africa to that point and on that page where we're looking at the really absolute necessity of unity. We have to unify and put everything together. All of our resources, all of our armies, all of our political movements need to be in one basket. We can't afford to be disenfranchised from ourselves. We can't afford to be divergent at this point. We need to be unified, and otherwise people will exploit it. And that's what we continue to see. That's all this is an effort to exploit Nigeria. So
yeah.
Can I add something, sir?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I also like at least so it's interesting to always look at the history of our struggle as African people to understand our strengths, the strengths we have in unity. Nigeria is a country known for its exceptionally solidarity with the African cause. And that's why the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy is Africa. During the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, Nigerians were in South Africa defending the South African people. Even across the Nigerian Federation, a tax was introduced, not imposed anyway. It was introduced, which they call the Mandela tax. It was a way with which the Nigerian people supported the anti-imperialist struggle in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in South Africa. So Nigeria has a history of supporting fellow African country, and that is what we are telling the Nigerian authority to remember what the Nigerian state stands for: solidarity with our people against Western or any form of imperialist aggression. And also, it's also important to also stress the fact that Nigeria has come of age. Africa has come of age. The Western imperialist forces need to understand that gone are the days where they dictate the affairs of the African continent. A new dawn has begun, and they should definitely understand it or come down to the African continent to meet their Waterloo. This is not the first time the imperialist forces have been defeated. It's in Cuba, during the Bay of Pigs invasion. The United States authority was embarrassed, was ridiculed. They were recently ridiculed in Burkina Faso, ridiculed in Niger. Their soldiers were there, yet the Africans army took over their country and chased them away. That is the level of humiliation and disgrace that the imperialist forces will continue to see, because Africa has no choice than to be united together, not only in thought, but also in military might. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Art, Donald Trump entered and ran on a campaign of no more wars. Wars are too expensive. Anti-military industrial complex. He's turned out to be a bold-faced liar, which we knew he was a liar in the first place. Right now, the United States is involved in proxy wars in Syria, Somalia, Yemen. We can literally say their hands are all and fingerprints are all over the issue in Sudan through the Emiratis. A proxy war in Ukraine, funding that. Gaza, they funded a genocide over 2 administrations. They literally handed off the baton from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to complete the job, where we have seen a literal genocide of the Palestinian people. His engagement into Africa, and particularly beating the war drums of Western propaganda. Again, we've seen this playbook under previous administrations with the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya in 2011. Allende, we can go all the way back to 1972 in El Salvador. Again and again and again, the same old playbook. How do we, as a activist community, a revolutionary community, continue to counteract their moves on this chessboard?
Well, we need to see it as a chessboard and understand that each chessboard, if you've got pieces that represent that square and that piece and how it is allowed to move, then you understand that you can be contained very easily if you're playing chess and you're playing checkers and you're playing in squares and you're playing as Nigeria and you're playing as Ghana and you're playing as Burkina Faso. You can't play that game with these people. They will eat you alive. And all we have to do is look at the history of revolution in Africa to know that. There was a revolution in Algiers when we were children. And we know that was a successful revolution because Algiers became an independent state. There was also a great freedom movement in Egypt at that time under Gamal Nasser. And those were very progressive states at that time. What happened to them? You can't look back on successful revolutions and say, oh, these countries were doing all of these great things, but now they're not. The reason they're not is because that revolution didn't transfer and translate to those states that were around them. Everybody thinks, or too many people in Africa in particular, think of Africa as a series of states. Everybody wants to be their own state. I don't care about Central African Republic. I don't care about Burkina Faso from the standpoint of what the Burkina Faso people feel is necessary to do in their little corner of Africa. If it's not tied to the total liberation of the African continent, it's not going to work, because all they'll do is they'll move to the country next door that has still a colonial government or colonial regime or some latently idiotic politician that's running that country, and they'll just come in through the side door. They're coming through the back door through those countries. You have to do it totally. You have to have a total strategy to liberate all countries, or else you're just going to be just slowly destroyed by the country next door, because they're going to come back. They'll be back because that's what they do. And this country has a perpetual policy of war. It is, anybody over 2 years old understands that America's foreign policy is war. They just changed the Department of Defense back to the War Party or Department of War, just to emphasize that. This is what they do. They have to have war in order to expand. They've got to be able to expand, because if you don't expand in a capitalist system, then you're stagnating.
The empire dies.
Mm-hmm.
The empire dies. Just want to pivot as we close out the last few minutes of the show today. You listen to The Muslim Street. You can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. All right. We've seen some more propaganda going on in the Caribbean and Central and South America. President Trump, more lies, has launched a quote unquote war on drugs into Venezuela. Everybody knows this is about the oil. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're saying that, okay, fentanyl is coming from Venezuela, or it's coming through Mexico. Fentanyl is a byproduct of opioids. The only place in the world opioids were even grown was Afghanistan. It's illegal to grow poppies in every country in the world. Nobody wants to be accused of being the country where poppies are growing and you're producing heroin, for the rest of the world. And that's why it's been diminished so much. And the only reason it was grown in Afghanistan is because the U.S. had attacked there, and it was the U.S. forces, the U.S. military, that was allowing the growth of poppies. When the Taliban took over in 2001, they burned all of the poppy fields. That was the first thing that a Muslim country did to protect the rest of the world, as responsible Muslims will do. They will say no to drugs and alcohol and anything else that's going to inebriate and break down the social fabric. They burn the fields. 1 year later, the U.S. attacked in 2003, at the beginning of 2003, and the first thing that they did was order that the poppy fields be resumed, and they resumed harvesting poppies. Only this time it was with American military support. I got pictures of American troops walking among poppy fields in Afghanistan, guarding those fields. So the whole stamp of what is going on in Venezuela today is speciously fraudulent. It's a ludicrous idea. There is no fentanyl that's being produced in China that's being filtered through Venezuela and filtered up through Mexico and whatever other lunacy that's coming out of the State Department. They know this is all fabrication. They know that when the Chinese produce any product, their derivative, everybody uses opioids. I mean, opioids have a legitimate use in medicine. Fentanyl is one of those byproducts, but the Chinese are very careful. They have coded markers in the fentanyl that they produce, that even if it's stepped on and it's diluted and it's put and shows up in different places, that drug came from China. China's taken those kinds of precautions to do that, and they know that the fentanyl that's coming in through Mexico is not originated in China. They know that. But again, this is the argument, because people will believe that, and especially internal consumption in America will say, oh yeah, that sounds logical, like the stupid cat used to say in the cartoons. This is where we get lost. And so there is no drug war. There is no drug movement. They're killing people who are fishermen from from other countries, from Colombia and from Trinidad. They don't even care who they're murdering. This just murder on the seas.
Yeah, the last few minutes before we go to our guests from Nigeria to close out the program, Art mentioned just this perpetual war phase that the United States government has been. Just for a matter of fact, to support what he said, since the War of 1812, the United States has been involved in 225 conflicts, also known as wars. In Islam, there's an Arabic term for this, and it's called Darul Harp, or the House of War. This is America. It is Darul Harp. That's all they know. That's how they've grown their empire, through imperialism. In the context of capitalism, they must continue to expand during the military. That's why they just go look at the military budget, the Department of Defense. That military budget outweighs all of the budgets in the United States, including the Department of Education, streets and sanitation, infrastructure put together. That lets you know that it is dying on its own vomit. And we should go to a show like that and talk about what Paul Kennedy said back in 1988 in his piece, as he discussed the fall of the American empire. So we'd like to close out Magic with some closing remarks from the ground in Nigeria from you. Also, we want to thank everybody for joining us here to discuss this. What we will see is a preemptive strike. We've seen this all before, where the United States uses a propaganda map of first you must demonize the people. So they've demonized the situation over in and the people over in Nigeria to set the tone for who's the bad guy on the international scene, who's the number one world number one enemy, and then they will go into their military invasion and expansion through that area, through that whole theme. Once they have first demonized and made created this whole victim enemy opposition, and they did it in Libya. We've seen them do this a number of times, right? They've been doing it to the Palestinians on their own homeland since 1948. Magic, any closing remarks from you?
Thank you so much. I would like to reiterate that President Donald Trump lied. There is no genocide against Christians going on in Nigeria. It can't even produce any evidence to that. And that's not the first time he's lying against an African country. He lied also against South Africa. And his fear is the decolonization struggle going on in the Sahel states. He doesn't want them to spread to Nigeria. So the world needs to understand that. And we need to put that in the right perspective. And also, in response to, I'd like to just briefly say something about the drug thing. Why I align my position with our brother who talked about it. I also like to review something very dark in the history of the American empire. Between 1999 to as recent as 2015, more than 600 Americans were killed during the opioid pandemic or opioid epidemic, because the American pharmaceutical cabals prescribed opioid drugs that made the Americans addictive, which led to the death, to the killing of more than 600 citizens of the United States of America. And that massacre, that killings, was spearheaded by the Sackler pharmacy, the Sackler family. Till today, the family, the pharmaceutical whatever is still in operation. The American government is not interested in any fight against drug or whatever, because they are the architect of all of this crisis. I'm happy that the world is saying it exactly as it is, and I'm sure victory is certain. So from the African continent, we remain united. We will never allow any foreign invader to determine the destiny of our continent. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you, Majikunde Abraham, author of The Great Delusion, on the ground in Nigeria. Also, we want to thank Art Mobley, founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists and also a co-convener of the Darfur 23. Art, the Darfur 23, what a valuable framework for Africans in the diaspora to get involved and really kind of shut down propaganda from the West. I mean, there's a classic example of how that matured. Also, I want to thank the Lance Scurv. Yeah, Art, you got one?
Yeah, just one other point. You know, this Christian-Muslim conflict that we'll hear a lot about in the coming weeks. And we've heard a lot about going back to Darfur, incidentally. That was supposed to be a Christian-Muslim conflict. Is a complete farce. We really need to understand in this country, there is no conflict between Christians and Muslims. Christians and Muslims all across Africa even intermarry. It's not even odd to find a family in Nigeria or in Ghana or in Darfur, for that matter. Husband, wife, Christian, Muslim, there is an absolutely specious argument, but I know we out of time, brother. But it's amazing.
No problem. No. Welcome you, Magic. We're gonna have you back next week, and as a continual report on the situation in Nigeria, based upon the threats out of Washington D.C. It's going to be a dire situation. I want to thank Lance Scurv Show for producing us out of Abori, Ghana, and for Dr. Issa White, who stepped away from us. I want to thank everybody for joining the Muslim Street. We'll see you guys next week. Same time, same station. It's 12 p.m. Eastern at our new time. And we will continue to deal with these hard issues. I am Malik Aziz, founder of the Muslim Street, co-convener of the Darfur 23, bringing you the Muslim Street from what will now be known as Darul Harb, the House of War. This place is on fire. It's been on fire since 1812. This is imperialism in motion. It must be stopped. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Mm-hmm.